From Wana Brands, welcome to Enhance Your Life. I'm your host, Jonathan Small, and each week I talk to people from all sorts of professions and backgrounds about how cannabis has enhanced their lives and how this healing plant can enrich your life too. Hey everybody, welcome to the Enhance Your Life podcast. My name is Jonathan Small and I am your host, and we are talking about everybody's favorite topic, sex today, and everybody's second favorite topic, cannabis. So sex and cannabis all in one show. I'm very excited about this episode. Very excited to introduce you to our guest, who is Sasha Kalcheff-Korn, an education coordinator for the Realm of Caring Foundation. The Realm of Caring Foundation provides information and education on cannabinoid therapies to improve people's health and their quality of life, and maybe even their sex life. So Sasha, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's so great to be here. Thank you for having me and Realm of Caring join you today.
Yeah, so just real quick, explain to us what Realm of Caring Foundation is, how it works. What is it exactly?
Yeah, absolutely. So Realm of Caring Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and our mission really hasn't changed much since day one, to improve the quality of life of individuals worldwide through cannabinoid research, education, and community outreach. So we work with clients one-on-one all throughout the world, helping them with their cannabinoid therapy, all at no cost. It's free to them. We provide educations to not only our community, but to medical professionals and dispensaries. And so we have that education arm, but then we also have our research arm, where we have currently the largest observational research registry for cannabinoid therapy in the world, alongside Johns Hopkins University.
Wow.
Where we are kind of collecting data and research and helping to, push this therapy forward and help more people.
Now, how did you get into this line of work? When did you first discover cannabis in your own life?
Yeah, great question. So I first joined Realm of Caring in 2019, but my start, it came a few years back. I was in my master's program in international human rights, and I was also working as an ABA therapist.
What is that? What is an ABA therapist?
So it's working with autistic kiddos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So one of my kiddos was actually using CBD oil to control their seizures. So I guess that was kind of my first spark of, witnessing the plant as medicine. And then I took a course in my program. It's called The Consequences of the Drug War. So I was able to really look at the historical and the human rights perspective of, cannabis, and I was able to write research papers. I had the opportunities to go to academic conferences and just kind of try and educate more people about the harms of the drug war and the benefits of this plant as a medicine.
Wow. So you really had a personal connection with it and really saw firsthand the healing power of it.
Yes.
Do you use it yourself in your own life?
I use CBD in my own life and occasionally cannabis. I would say once in a while if needed, given the stressful times.
Yeah, I think we all need a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about cannabis and sex. I know your foundation has done some research on that and has some answers, hopefully, for us. I think there's a lot of, like anything, you're talking about two topics that have a stigma attached to them, right? That people don't always like to talk about openly: intimacy and sex and cannabis. So bring them together, and there's not a lot of transparency. So I'd love to try to clear some questions, try to understand a little bit how it works. Just general, broad question here. Can cannabis, and we're talking about CBD here and THC, can it enhance your sex life? Has there been research to show that it can help in sex, in people's intimacy?
Sure. Yeah. So, it's kind of two different ways, right? So cannabis, bringing it into the bedroom might help. There's research to support that, and I can get to that in just a sec. But first, if you take into consideration what prohibits us from wanting or enjoying sex, so when we're thinking anxiety, stress, exhaustion, pain, depression, research tells us that several cannabinoids can help to limit those ailments. So that way we are able to enjoy sex and enjoy intimacy with our partner, because how are we supposed to do that if we are, exhausted,
preoccupied,
right, in pain, and especially when it comes to women, and there's so many conditions that women suffer with that bring about vaginal pain and discomfort. So how are you supposed to enjoy it if you're dealing with that? So by being able to limit those ailments that we suffer with in our lives, we can then in turn enhance our sex lives. Absolutely.
You said several cannabinoids. Are there specifically ones that seem to be a little bit better at relaxing you and getting you ready?
Yeah, I would say incorporating, just CBD because of its accessibility and because of how widely researched it is. That would be the first one I would look to, or I would, recommend towards somebody, because it is accessible for so many people, and you can incorporate it into your daily lives without having a head high effect. But just, its role as a modulator, it's helping to modulate things within our body and find a balance. So improving our quality of sleep over time, things like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was the next? You said there's another way to look at it. So that's the sort of like to chill you out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's like daily, you want to be, relaxed and comfortable and not in pain. But there is research to support that we can incorporate cannabis into our sex, so there has been some studies. There was one done with women in 2016 and 2017, where they filled out questionnaires to report on the effect of cannabis before engaging in sexual activity. And their outcomes were increased sex drive, improvement in orgasm, decrease in pain. And then likewise for men, there were outcomes as well. So there was increased sexual pleasure, satisfaction, and then heightened sensations during an orgasm. And so that's talking about acute administrations of THC.
Right.
Beforehand.
All right. So there is some positive. I think there has been talk, or there is some, I think, thought that cannabis can, just like alcohol, can sort of less, you get so chilled out that you're less able to perform.
Loosen you up.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
There's that whole thing with alcohol too, where it's I can't because I'm too drunk or whatever. And I'm wondering if cannabis has the same effect, or if it can have the same effect on your I don't know what the word is. Arousal. Performance. Yeah, arousal. It's so hard to talk about this subject without being like, how do I do it delicately, But yes, we'll say arousal. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, absolutely, because this is something that I kind of relate it to. It's like having a glass of wine versus the bottle of wine, right?
Yeah.
So what has been shown in research is that acute administration. So smaller amounts can enhance stimulation and enhance that pleasure. But when you get into larger amounts, it might be inhibitory. So, premature ejaculation or inhibited orgasms, or, no desire to be intimate. Right. So, keeping it, small might be more beneficial. And, again, what research is out there is mostly observational when it comes to humans and cannabis and sex. But it has also been researched in animal models like rats.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I don't want to be involved in the rat sex study. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. And they did
not pay me enough. What did they find with the rats?
They found with the rats that it could enhance sexual receptivity. So by that, I mean acceptance of intercourse, initiating or maintaining sexual intercourse, and then also attracting others to engage for these rats.
It's social. It's a social... Yeah. I don't know. The idea of these rats getting high and having sex is just, let's move on.
Right.
What about, so I feel like a big trend now you see is putting CBD in oil and lubricant and stuff. So I always think when we're talking before, I'm thinking, okay, that's somebody smoking a little bit, before engaging in sex. But what about the things that we use as lubricants, and has there been any studies about that? Is that different than consuming it physically like that, as opposed to smoking it or taking it as a tincture, an edible, that kind of thing?
The research is limited to support utilizing that for sexual pleasure, but when it comes to utilizing CBD as a cream or an ointment or a lubricant to maybe decrease any pain, that could be beneficial. But, it might be that you smoke or you vape if you are using before engaging in sexual activity because of the quicker onset time that might bring.
Right.
But I would say using it as a tincture or as a vape or as smoking would be probably more used and we'll probably see it come out more in lubricants and different
Right.
topicals to be using.
Lubricants are topicals. They're probably doing what lubricants and topicals do for pain. They're just either it's anti-inflammatory. Although, do you want it to be anti-inflammatory if you're? It almost feels like counterintuitive.
Right.
It feels a bit counterintuitive. I doubt they study this, but the idea of like cannabis being an aphrodisiac, like, people say oysters are an aphrodisiac and chocolate. I don't even know if aphrodisiacs are a real thing, but is there any evidence to support the fact that cannabis could be an aphrodisiac?
Yeah, I mean, it does, what limited research is there is showing us that it can help to increase, our desire. And like, I hate to take it back to the rats, but looking at the rats, I mean, just that receptivity. So having attraction towards others, but then also others having that attraction towards you. So kind of that same concept of an aphrodisiac.
Is it, you mentioned something about improving orgasms, like, or even enabling you to have orgasms. I guess that also falls into the relaxation, because it seems like a lot of times for people, an orgasm is as much of a mental issue, a psychological issue, as it is a physical issue. Do we know anything about that?
Absolutely. So just like you said, allowing you to relax, but then also potentially heightening the sensation. So, being more in tune with those sensations that you're having at that point, there's the potential for that.
Right. So what would we advise people? So let's say, we have all sorts of different listeners to this show. So some people are regular users, have been using cannabis for years. Some might be wanting to introduce it for the first time into their sex life. What would be your advice at first for the people who are canna curious, as we call them, about introducing cannabis and sex, cannabis into their intimacy? Like, what would you advise?
It's pretty intimidating, and I understand that. And, those of us who are familiar with cannabis know it can be intimidating for those who are not as familiar. So ask the questions if you're uncomfortable and you want to even call our care team and talk about it. We have these conversations with people, and we're open to kind of talking you through choosing a product or something that might work for you. But if you wanted to get started in just, maybe not jump to bringing it to the bedroom, but just incorporating it into your daily life to maybe enhance your own desire to want to engage in sex, then, maybe you start with the cannabinoid like CBD. That is safe and pretty simple to, get started with, because you can go to the grocery store and buy a good product there. But getting started at a small point, and then path of least resistance, and then kind of maybe getting more comfortable to looking into THC products as it's available to you.
Right. There's a lot of studies that you're privy to, and there's a lot of information that you're going over as an educator. What are the questions that you get the most? Just in general, let's go out of the realm of sex here. What are the questions that you get the most about cannabis? Like, what are people the most curious about in your opinion?
People are most curious about how much do I take and what do I take so that it can help me? Because people are they're kind of at the end of their rope, and they're looking for something that will help, and they hear that cannabis might. So they just want to know, how do I get started? I think that's the biggest question.
And help for what? For what would be the main things? I always hear it's sleep, anxiety, pain, right? Or that seems to be the big three.
I would say those are the big three, especially coming out of 2020 to 2021. There's a lot of stress, anxiety last year that's manifesting into now sleeplessness, pain, more anxiety. So people are looking for ways to help with that, so that way they can just feel normal in their daily lives. That's what they want more than anything. But that's what's most often that we're getting. But we still get a lot. I think a lot of our client base still suffers with epileptic conditions, behavioral conditions, so like autism or ADHD. But yeah, we get them all over the spectrum. But more recently, a lot of anxiety and sleep.
What do you tell these people?
Well, we help them get started. First we'll tell them what the research says to support their decision, and we sort of give them the tools that they need, and then allow them to make an educated, responsible decision on how to move forward, how to find a quality of product, because first and foremost, that's what really matters. You want to make sure that the product you're putting in your body is something of quality, that it's actually what it says on the bottle is what's inside the bottle. And then just giving them the tools on how much to take and starting out, how to increase if you're not feeling a benefit, just talking with your doctor, questions to ask your doctor if you want to talk with them, because, this is health related. So we do want to make sure that you are talking with a medical professional, because we're not medical professionals. We can give you those tools, but we can't say that this will for sure treat or cure anything.
Right. But you obviously have a strong belief that it can. I know you can't legally tell people, right? But you're seeing the research. Are you encouraged by kind of the tide maybe in the country becoming a little bit more progressive towards cannabis, more places opening up, that you guys will have access to more, that there will be the ability to do more research, at least in America, to study this amazing plant?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as long as, we have these observational studies like that we have that are showing the medical community that, hey, look, this is actually helping people. So that's kind of paving the way for more clinical trials to be done. So that way we can have that, that data, and then we can start approving more cannabinoids for research and legalizing more cannabinoids. So that way it's allowing more people to have access. So I do find that it is going in that direction. Absolutely.
So there's all sorts of different strains you can take. And is there anything that's been shown to be a better strain if you want to be a high performing, happy sexual camper, as opposed to maybe you want to stay away from this particular strain because it's not going to help you?
It's got to be there's going to be trials. You're going to have to try and figure out what's going to work for you, because when it comes to cannabinoid therapy, everybody will respond differently. And
right,
so one
personal.
person could say, this is what you need. And it could, knock them on their butt and put them straight to sleep. Where the other person, it wakes them up and gets
that makes you so exciting. Yeah. As a partner.
Right. Yeah.
But in terms of like indica versus a sativa, I would imagine just anecdotally that an indica might make you more sleepy generally, and therefore maybe not be the best. But then a sativa makes you more kind of like happy and up. I don't know. It just I'm curious what you think might be a better choice. I know it's different for each person.
Right. Yeah. And anecdotally speaking, you're right. Maybe looking more towards a sativa, something that has the terpenes in there that are a little bit more awakening, like a limonene,
right?
So like citrusy versus linalool, which is lavender, which is sleepy. So trying to find something that's a little bit more awakening. But there's so many hybrids out there, and especially when you consider tinctures, it'll tell you right on the bottle what it's meant to do. It'll say sleep or it'll say awake. So
yeah.
If we're looking at tinctures versus flower,
right? I even know there's one. Well, it's funny because there's one, I won't name the company, but they have a lot of companies will name like what they want the feeling state to be and so one is called Arouse, which I'm sure is for sexual purposes. But apparently I've never tried it, but some friends of mine have said that's the one that makes me just like that. I gave that to my wife and she fell asleep in 5 seconds, and they were like, this is totally backfired on me. But then,
I know, it really does depend. I mean, like my husband could have half a cookie and be falling asleep, and I could have a half a cookie and I'd be like, all right, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
I know.
Right.
All right. How can people interact with Realm of Caring Foundation? Like, what's the best way to be part of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're interested as a client or a medical professional or a dispensary and you want education, we provide education. I do monthly webinars on different topics. You can call us Monday through Thursday. We're open. We have our lines open. You can email us if you have any questions about cannabinoid therapy. You can register as a client with us, and it's totally free. We don't charge our clients anything, but that just gives you access to enter into the research study if you want to be a part of this big informative machine that is moving cannabis forward. And you can have access to our administration guidelines and product suggestions. And you can just talk one-on-one with us, and we can, help you figure out whatever issue you're trying to solve.
All right. Well, thank you for talking to me so early in the morning about sex and cannabis.
It's okay. I love it. I think it's super empowering to talk about sex and these kind of, taboo topics that we try and avoid.
I know. It's so silly that we try to avoid it when most of our life, all we want is to have it. and then we don't want to talk about it. So I appreciate you being so candid and open and helpful.
Absolutely.
Sasha Kalcheff-Korn, thank you so much for joining the Enhance Your Life podcast.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Enhance Your Life is brought to you by Wana, the #1 infused product in the U.S. Wana's entire process is designed to deliver the same great experience time after time. They have spent years fine-tuning their recipes so that their products are delicious, consistent, and potent. For more information, check out wanawellness.com. That's Wana, W-A-N-A, wellness.com.